guys, so I have a pretty interesting video for you today. It kind of has to do with like science and biology and basically trying to figure out what the actual cause of stuttering is. Now this is something that has really baffled me over the years. I've researched it so many times and I've seen so many theories about what stuttering is caused by. Currently, I believe that it's caused from many different things and each person is different. But that's also kind of frustrating not knowing the exact reason about why stuttering happens to so many individuals. But today I wanted to talk about the different theories that people have compiled and kind of talking about genetics, the environment, and will my child in the future have a stutter? That's definitely one of the scarier things when I think about having a child in the future, because I know that stuttering is somewhat genetic. I will be talking about that further in the video, but it's always kind of scary thinking about that, so that's why I wanted to make this video. The three different sections I'm going to split this video into are genetics, environmental, and neurological. So yeah, let's get right on into it. Now, obviously, as I just mentioned, I am a little bit nervous about my child in the future having a stutter. And I recently discovered an app called Speech Blubs that I believe can honestly really help children all over the world who are suffering with some sort of speech problem. This app is honestly so professional and very kid-friendly, and as well as it being a type of speech therapy, the children will absolutely love to play on this app while improving their communication skills. One of the coolest things about this app is that you can actually take a survey where it kind of asks you about the symptoms of your child and their speaking abilities. And then you get sent an email with kind of a diagnosis telling you what kind of exact therapy your child needs. Although this is not a replacement for speech therapy, many speech therapists have actually been known to use this app while working with children. And it is just a great way to practice communication skills while on the go. I will be leaving a link in the description where you guys can get a discount for the full version of the app if you would like to help children in need. So thank you so much for Speech Blubs for partnering with me for this video. Now let's move on right into the genetics section of this video. I was reading an article and it talked about all these different scientists who study stuttering, and I find that so interesting that there are actual scientists put towards this task of discovering what stuttering is all about. Now, talking about the genetic side of stuttering, I'm going to be going off of a research paper conducted by two scientists, or I'm not sure if they were professors, but their last names were Kraft and Yanni. They indicated that there is research concluding that stuttering is partially genetic. But there is no observable proof yet that it has to do with transmission, chromosomes, genes, or gender. So that is kind of all still a bit of a theory and a bit of a mystery. Studies have also concluded that there are likely gene mutations that contribute to stuttering. There have been 3 specific genes that have been noted to have some sort of correlation with stuttering, and here they are. And these genes have found that they disrupt the signal that sends enzymes to their target location. Gene mutations have been found in 10% of cases of familial stuttering. So although this is still a small percentage, they are still talking about the factor that it has to do with genes. So one of the scientists who was particularly talking about the genetic factor of stuttering is called Dr. Drana, and she is one of the leading scientists who have studied stuttering over the years. Studied stuttering, that's very difficult to say. She described that although stuttering does cluster in families, the severity of it does not. So for example, if you have a family member who stutters, you are more likely to stutter. However, if the family member has a very severe stutter, this does not increase your chances of having a stutter, nor does it increase the chances of you having a severe stutter as well. Another interesting finding that she mentioned is that the male to female ratio in familial cases of stuttering is approximately 1.5 to 1. This means that in every family who seems to have a stuttering gene somewhere in there, for every 1.5 males who stutter, there is at least one female who does. And this ratio is quite different to past reports where people have described that it was 4.5 males to every one female. But this suggests that genetic transmission of stuttering affects females almost as greatly as males. And for individuals with no history of stuttering in their family, the male to female ratio is much higher, so it's about 7 or 8 males for every one female. So overall, Dr. Drana concluded that she believes that stuttering is both genetic and environmental. And there are also multiple genes that go into having a stutter, not just one. For example, deafness is compiled of over 100 genes. Now let's get straight into the environmental factors. This is definitely one of the factors that I've noticed really affects my stutter. Whenever I'm in a stressful situation or I'm very anxious, my stutter automatically starts to get worse. So let's talk about this. When we are in a situation where we must speak, we are constantly thinking of what can happen, how the person will respond, will we speak in a perfect manner, and what if the other person doesn't reply in the way that we want to? There are all these stressors that are happening around us. Because the fear and whole questioning the environment happens subconsciously, these forces usually operate outside of awareness. The only thing we're conscious of is the fear. Now this kind of goes hand in hand with neurological as well. So I'm going to be talking about another doctor named Dr. Christine Weber Fox, who is another leading scientist in the study of stuttering, and she studies the neurological side and how individuals process language information. So of course, stuttering really has to do with communication, language, and understanding everything that's happening around us. And she explains that her purpose in pursuing this line of research is to investigate whether individuals who stutter appear to have atypical brain functions when they are processing linguistic information, such as deciding whether a sentence contains a grammatical error or whether 2 words rhyme. And I found this part very interesting because she's trying to figure out whether there was actually something different about our brains itself. So let me go on and talk about this because I find this very interesting. So, based on a series of studies that Dr. Weber Fox and colleagues conducted at Purdue University, they concluded that stuttering is not based solely on the individual's ability to execute a sentence of muscle movements, but is also determined by language processing. And I'm sorry I'm reading this directly from my computer. It's because I want to get all of the facts straight. She uses a research technique called the event-related potentials to study how the brain processes information. A series of electrodes are placed on a person's head, and the electric energy that is emitted while the individual completes the task is measured by the electrodes. So they are literally doing basically a brain scan while the person is processing what is going on in front of them. Her findings for adults who stutter show differences in their ability to accurately judge grammatical information such as verb agreement violations. In the next study, where individuals had to process different types of words or phrases, those who stuttered showed a delay in processing that was not seen in individuals who did not stutter. Because the brain is so changeable over time with experiences, it is difficult to determine whether or not these differences existed before the stutter or after the stutter. Because of the plasticity of our brains, it might be that living with the stutter over time may have contributed to the differences being noted in adults as the brain attempts to compensate for the stuttering. This next part still has to do with the theory of neurological stuttering, but this doctor in particular was stuttering. Oh my gosh. But this doctor in particular was studying the factor of how maybe our auditory skills and the way we hear things has to do with our stutter. So this doctor is named Dr. Foundas, who studies the anatomy and functions of the brain in individuals who stutter, and is particularly interested in the region of the auditory cortex known as the planum temporal. The auditory cortex is of special interest in individuals who stutter because of consistent findings that stuttering is reduced during tasks like choral reading and altered auditory feedback, both of which involve auditory input. This scientist conducted research that led to a discovery of an atypical planum temporal anatomy in adults who stutter. For example, if individuals study less when using delayed auditory feedback, it might mean that the delayed feedback creates changes in the way that the brain processes it. After realizing this, Dr. Foundas and her colleagues designed a study that used delayed auditory feedback as a stimulus, so that possible changes in the brain might be observed in the planum temporal, so that possible changes in the brain might be observable in the planum temporal region. Using MRI, the brains of the subjects in the study were scanned while they read passages in two conditions, with and without delayed auditory feedback. This study included those who stuttered and those who didn't stutter, and compared their fluency in both conditions. Individuals whose fluency improved under DAF were the same as individuals who had an atypical planum temporal. Individuals with normal anatomy did not experience improved fluency under DAF. Dr. Foundas interpreted her findings to suggest that DAF may be a beneficial treatment option for those who stutter, and that perhaps this atypical anatomy is one factor that contributes to the onset of stuttering. Now, after all this research and kind of explaining it all to you, it is still kind of a guessing game about whether or not my future children or your future children will have stuttering in their speech. It's kind of the same thing as asking whether my children will have blue or brown eyes.
Sorry, I'm just gonna cut to a blank screen because I totally forgot to talk about that I did a poll on Instagram asking you guys whether other people in your family stutter, and I was very surprised by the results. We came across that 70% of you guys said no and 30% said yes, which was not the results I was expecting, but it's still very cool.
Now, they're still currently doing studies on the factor of genes and whether and how likely it is for the stuttering genes to be passed on. But I really hope that you guys were interested in this video because I personally found it very interesting myself. If you would like me to do more videos kind of like this where I'm talking about the more science and biological side of stuttering, then make sure to give it a thumbs up to let me know. And if you end up downloading the app Speech Blubs, let me know as well. Anyways, I will see you guys very, very soon, and I hope you are having a wonderful day. Bye.